Salutations, Imperial citizens and battle brothers. It's me, Brother Tobias, and the new Balance Dataslate has just dropped. Now, I will go over the detachment separately from the Dataslate in two different videos, and then I will give my thoughts at the end of each. The I will give my thoughts about each at the end of the perspective videos. Excuse me if I'm fumbling a bit. I just got out of bed and now I'm gonna read all of this. So the balance data slate is here, so effective right now. Things are changing. Let's look at the red text because that's the important thing. I will talk in depth about the rules changes, but I will not talk in depth about the what would you call it, about every single faction. I will give a brief summary and then we get to the Space Marines, which is the good stuff. So, first of all, stratagems that allow closer setup range. So, every 3-inch deep strike got nerfed to 6 inches. This also applies to datasheet rules, as we will see later in the document. And this change is completely fair, in my opinion, because 3-inch deep strike is a busted ability. It is way too strong in multiple armies. It seemed like it was fine when Inceptors got nerfed for the first time, so nobody was running 15 of them anymore. But as soon as a good army with a 3-inch deep strike ability came around, like Necrons, it was immediately over. And then they got nerfed, and then it was like, oh yeah, it's fine again. And then it happened to the Astra Militarum Aquilons, and that broke the game. It broke the game so hard they had to emergency nerf it, which means, yeah, that's it. So yeah, no 3-inch deep strike. Now, I will say whether or not this makes Inceptors unplayable if we get to the points. If the Inceptors go down in points accordingly, I think this is actually good. You lose a bit of utility, but Inceptors are so goddamn expensive. It would be rough if they stay the same. I think they need to drop like 20 or 30 points for this to be fair. So, okay. Next, stratagems that worsen armor penetration. So, this basically says that abilities like Armor of Contempt only work for one activation. So how it was before, you get shot, you activate Armor of Contempt, and now for the rest of the phase, the AP is modified by 1. This has changed. Now, if you get shot, you have -1 AP for that singular shooting activation. So if a second unit shoots you, that means if a second unit shoots you, that means every single attack from the second unit is not debuffed. That is a big problem because this really, really hurts Space Marine durability. This makes it easier for Space Marines to kill other Space Marines and but this is effectively a buff to shooting armies because in close combat you don't really charge one unit with two different units. I mean, you can do it now because of this rule, but that's not usually what you do. And this is just going to buff Tau and Sisters and Votan into the stratosphere. I know Votan has Void Armor, which also gets nerfed too, but that doesn't matter. Votan is just gonna shoot you off the board now because one Sagittar shoots you, and if you pop the Armor of Contempt, and the Land Fortress shoots you, and then you die, and it is bad. I don't like this. I don't think this was a problem in the game at all in any capacity. It was probably a problem on specifically one unit called Deathwing Knights. And I am really tired of the fact that Dark Angels get every single rule in this game nerfed instead of just nerfing the Dark Angels. It is so annoying. Oh yeah. I would rather have paid 2 command points for it than have it nerfed. This is my opinion on it. So Sororitas. Basically how we do. they don't get a automatic 6 anymore, and they get a lot fewer miracle dice. They get fewer of them, so they don't do as much stuff. Uh, Bringers of Flame got nerfed. It is now units within 6 inches instead of every unit within 12, and a bunch of CP went up. So basically, Bringers of Flame is worse. Desperate, there's a buff for what's it called? Pendant Host. There it is. You can now select a unit, and you don't have to select the unit to take the vow for the turn. That was a bad thing because it basically meant that you wasted one of your free once per game abilities in that detachment because it said you have to and not you can. So good for them. Good for those players. So Custodes. Custodes got buffed, which is crazy. They just won the world championship. They weren't exactly the best army ever, but there was a rumor about custodian wardens. So I will check the FAQs if that is actually a thing. But yeah, jet bikes are now toughness 7 and got extra wounds. Same with the captain, and the salvo launcher is now strength 6, strength 10, AP 3, damage D6, and the hurricane bolter is damage 2. This is pretty wild. So on the captain and the unit, so both got buffed. That is a big deal. And they also trigger their mortal wound ability on normal moves. So yeah, this makes custodian jet bikes really good. This makes them insanely strong. All right, Eldar no changes. Admech no changes. Guard. Leontis can no longer order everything. He can only order regiment and squadron units. This is a weird nerf to specifically Bane Blades, because the tank commander is still a the tank commander is still a squadron unit, right? Or did they remove that? Did they remove that? I think it's in the FAQ. It's in the FAQ, so they didn't, I assume. So yeah, Aquilons can deep strike 3 inches, and they can only use this ability in their turn. You will see this elsewhere in this FAQ, so you can't rapid ingress free away anymore. That's pretty rough for them. And they also went up in points, I know that. So yeah. Nerfs to guard, as we expected. But yeah. Nothing for Blood Angels. Black Templars. Black Templars got the Repulsor Executioner changed. Oh, the Repulsor Executioner can now carry 7 models. Well, that's kind of cute. They didn't adjust the Executioner last time, so that's a thing. Combat Knives are now AP1. Ooh, that might be something. Chaos Knights. Chaos Knights got a big buff. Basically, their army ability that only worked from turn 2 or 3 onwards is now always on, and some of their other rules got clarified. Yeah, the Trader's Mark now triggers more stuff and blah blah. It's just some stuff. Okay, Chaos Space Marines. Strat Talons. Yeah, their 3-inch deep strike thing got nerfed, but the range got adjusted. The Predator Annihilator, this is for all factions. You now have reroll damage on your ranged attacks against vehicles and monsters. That is actually a good ability for the Predator Annihilator. I might now consider it over the Destructor, because that one is AP against infantry. Tyranids. No, wait, that is demons. Demons, no changes. That is crazy. Demons have been popping off recently. They got really far at the World Championship, and they are winning a lot of like smaller scale tournaments, because that is a stat check you cannot get past. And Screamers now hit on 3s in melee, which is good because they are now anti-monster and anti-vehicle. Pretty good. I like that. That is a good unit now. Dark Angels, their bike detachment now gives advance and charge and fallback and charge to bikes. One of the enhancements can now reroll advances and charges. Most importantly, Black Knights, the bikes, got dev wounds on their melee attacks. And Lionel Johnson now has a 2 damage sweep. Lionel Johnson can now sweep for 2 damage. That's a good rule. That is a really good rule. Crazy. Death Guard, no changes, which is surprising, but welcome because Death Guard have been performing really well ever since the last update where the Death Shot Terminators have gone up. Really good. Same Predator nerf, and Mortarion can now Deep Strike. This is a big deal because if you have a Death Guard army with Mortarion and you play against Votan or Tau or something, you just lose Mortarion on turn one. He is really hard to hide and get value out of, and without Deep Strike, it was like embarrassing to get him out of reserves. Mortarion was also the only Demon Primarch without Deep Strike. Yeah, so that's bad. Gene Stealer Colts, a lot of nerfs, basically. A lot of nerfs. Demolition charges got changed to 8 inches to make up for the fact that nothing can deep strike within 6 to use their weapons, of course. And instead of rolling for their reserves, GSC can now spend a bunch of points to get units back. And those points, they don't regenerate as far as I can tell, and you can no longer rapid ingress if you spend points to bring things back. So you can't just deep strike the units wherever you want if you get the revive on them. So you have to actually use the blips. This is a big deal for Gene Stealer Cults, and I think this will hurt them a bit. Also change, you don't get +1 OC if you're battle shocked. That is a change that seems to apply to new rules design, which is honestly good. It makes battle shock more impactful, but it is a big nerf to things like ancients that give +1 OC. All right, Imperial Agents, yeah, just 3-inch deep strike nerf. Imperial Knights, nothing. This is embarrassing. Knights are not a good army. Knights are struggling really hard, and they just don't do it. They just refuse to undo this one. They just refuse to give the bondsman back to the big knight. It is crazy. They just don't do it, and I don't get it. Okay, Necrons. This will be a rough one. So the Destroyer Legion now has +1 AP if they attack the closest target. That's good, I think. With a range attack, that's good. It gives a buff to the ranged destroyers. Previously, that detachment only buffed melee destroyers, but nobody is running this detachment anyway, so maybe now they do. I doubt it, because the Christmas detachment for Necrons is crazy strong, and we'll see right here. Hypercrypt nerfed. You now pick up 2 units instead of 3 units per turn. This probably destroys the army. It is still 3 units with the enhancement, but this is probably going to say every single Necron player is now playing the Star Shatter, because this is going to be a rough one. All right, Orcs. Cool buff for Orcs. You now call the war at the start of your command phase, and it lasts until your command phase. This is something Orc players have been asking for a while, because Orcs had always a problem of, if you go second and you have to call the war on your opponent's turn, the idea was that you can use it defensively to get your invuln against the damage. The problem is, if your opponent gets the war active and you get to move before they have advance and charge, you just move backwards and you move into screening positions. You put your trash in front because you know exactly what's coming. And this is now just better, because now you cannot rely on the Orcs to do this. Same thing with the Bully Boy detachment got on the thing. The Big Hunt. The Big Hunt got a change. The fallback and charge is now always. It's not only against the prey. You get a buff instead, and you can now select monster vehicle and character units from your opponent's army, which is a good one. This is really good. This might actually make the Big Hunt a good rule. This is now actually playable. I really like it. Other than that, Gaskull got nerfed. Gaskull's unit now only gets the crit 5s if you call the war. I'm pretty sure that's a nerf. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he always had crit 5s if he was in a unit. Not entirely sure, but yeah, that's the thing. So, Space Marines, here we go. So what do we get for losing Armor of Contempt? If your army is not a snowflake, so you don't play any of the stupid chapters that get 500 extra units, you now get +1 to wound against the oath target. Now, this is a good thing, obviously. I'm not gonna complain that this is a bad thing for us to get. I'm complaining about this from a mechanical standpoint. Having one rule give you reroll hits and +1 to hit is just sloppy design. I wish they would have just reversed the oath to say you reroll wounds. I know this makes more sense with twin-linked weapons. It makes more sense to not abuse death wounds, though I don't even think that is a thing. So that is something that happens, but yeah, this is a buff. Don't get me wrong, this is a buff. This will really help out. This will really help out things like Blade Guard veterans and Hellblasters. Funny enough, will really like this. I think this is better for Hellblasters than what happens next. But yeah, this is a good rule. Don't get me wrong, but I hate the fact that it reads really awkwardly. I wish they would have done something else. Gladius Task Force. Fire Discipline no longer gives critical hit 5s. You can now just reroll your advance rolls. That enhancement better go down to like 10 points, because this is now just ass. This is really sad. I hope this also means that we get significant point drops on Eradicators and Hellblasters and Aggressors, especially, because this is a big thing to lose and it makes the Gladius a lot worse. Now, granted, you now have the rule on top to make up for the damage, so that is something. The Gravis Captain, the bolt rifle now does 3 damage, and then a bunch of characters got buffed. So I will go over it quickly when we get to the end of this for the specifics. So let's jump to generic changes. Heavy Intercessors now do 2 damage with their bolt rifles. This is really good. This is pretty good. If Heavy Intercessors stay the same cost, I think the Vanguard might actually now run 10 Heavy Intercessors with Calgar. Because now, my problem was always, if you have Calgar with 6 Eradicators, that is a unit your opponent cannot approach without being scared. If you have a unit of Heavy Intercessors, your opponent can just go there. Like, you have a big knight, you just walk into that unit and you're like, what's up? Because what are they gonna do? Shoot you with their tiny guns? So Heavy Intercessors doing 2 damage with potentially +1 to wound, that is pretty good. So I might actually try it. Just 10 Heavy Intercessors with Calgar. The Heavy Bolter now hits on 3s instead of 4s. That's good. Infernus Marines got big buffs. You can now the Flamer is now AP1, and the Flamer now does -1 to the battle shock test. So that is now a pretty reliable way to do some stuff with this. So I like it. Inceptors nerfed to 6 inches. I talked about it earlier in this review. If the points make up for this, I'm completely okay with it. But if they go up in points for some reason, or they stay the same, they are unplayable. Intercessors. Intercessors now get +2 attacks to their bolt rifles if they target 1 unit. So if you don't split fire, you now get +2 attacks. That's actually kind of interesting. I like this. This is actually not bad. This is actually not bad at all. What do we have over here? Outriders. If they charge, they get +1 strength and damage. That's a pretty big deal. You lose the auto advance 6, but +1 strength and damage. That might actually be enough to get Outriders on the board, to be honest. Because that means in Gladius, you can pay 1 command point to get Lance and AP. So now you have strength 5 with Lance. That means a lot of things in the game you wound on a 4. And then you do damage 2 with AP2. That's a pretty decent rule, damn. Yeah, that's a good rule. Predator Annihilator, as I said, Reavers. Reavers got 2 buffs. First, Reavers, it's only 2 buffs, right? Yes. Their combat knives don't go up. importantly. Reavers got 2 buffs. They now reduce OC from non-vehicles within 3 by 1. This is not capped. This means Reavers now take a unit to OC 0. That's pretty good. That is actually really good. Now, finally, after all these years, you might care to put a Reaver into your army. Reaver squad for some morale. The leadership test is now -1. That means with the lieutenant, you are now -2 to the leadership test. So this makes this more reliable, so I like it. But this is the big one. This is what might make Reavers actually like a good unit. Yeah. The Repulsor Executioner can now carry 7 units, and then we have... Oh, various combat... Excuse me, I was wrong. Here we go. All combat knives are now AP1. So this applies to Incursors, the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon. Hell yeah. The Lieutenant, the Captain in Phobos armor. All of the Phobos units that have weird knives are now AP1. I'm pretty sure this means the best loadout for a Scout squad is now knives. You should get scouts with knives. That's probably now the good thing. And here we go. Stern Guard Veteran Squad. If you target the Oath of Moment, you can reroll the wound roll. Finally. This was necessary. This might make Stern Guard good. Now you might take them. If they are still cheap enough, and Oath of Moment, what do I want to call it? Fire Discipline was nerfed. Fire Discipline got nerfed, and this is now your rule. Stern Guard are looking way better. So now let's get to the character buffs in order. So Imperial Fists, basically they're character units that aren't every Terminator unit that is not a character now has OC2 while it's not battle shocked. That's fine. It's some reason to play Imperial Fists. Ironfather Feroz. Heavy Intercessors are now OC3 while they are not battle shocked. Shrike makes Assault Intercessors with jump packs OC2. That is actually pretty good. These guys move 12 inches. That's actually pretty decent. Korsaro Khan makes Outriders OC3 while they're not battle shocked, so it's always the same thing. And Pedro Cantor makes Stern Guard OC2. Well, that's doing something. I don't think this will dissuade anyone from min-maxing and not taking any of these chapters, but at least it's something. So I would have preferred they just made them battle line too, because that means you could have scored more secondaries, but it is what it is. Vulcan Hestan, he gives Infernus Marines OC2. That's probably good. That's probably good enough to run like a bunch of them. And Robute Gilliman does not give OC2 to anything. Instead, you get to pick 2 of your abilities. Okay. If Robute Gilliman doesn't go up in points, this means he's an auto-include. That would be nuts. I think he's going back up. How much? I don't know. But I'm sure Robute Gilliman is going back up. Alright, so what else do we got? Thousand Suns got a buff with the Predator. No nerfs. No nerfs to Thousand Suns this one time. And last we have Tyranids and World Eaters. World Eaters got the Predator buff, and now they can't use Go to Ground to give a Jackal unit a 6-up invuln, to then give them a 4-up invuln. Now they thoroughly made sure that nobody is running the Jackal Horde anymore. Good for you, World Eaters. Yay, good for you, World Eaters. Good for you. Oh, wrong hand. Come on. There we go. Good for you, World Eaters. Good for you. You did it. And then we have here, Feed the Swarm Detachment rule. The Harvester units now heal D3 plus 1 instead of D3, I think. And the Norn Assimilator now has the Harvester keyword. So now that thing actually has a purpose. I don't know if any Tyranid players will actually use the detachment the assimilation swarm, but it is good. This is something I've been suggesting since the Codex came out. Why is the Norn assimilator not a unit you can use in the assimilation swarm? That is so silly. The Trigon, Subterranean Terrors, it can't 3-inch Deep Strike. Good. And that was the data slate. So, what do I think about the data slate? I am very worried. I think Space Marines didn't get buffed as was promised. I think Space Marines got side graded. I think losing access to Armor of Contempt as it was is a big deal. This will make the army so easy to kill. It is wild how easy it will be to kill Space Marines, especially with other Space Marines. Like this is over. This is so gone. +1 to wound for us is really good. +1 to wound is a good buff. But losing fire discipline is a big deal, because that now means you probably won't take any of the like big eradicator breaks or that. Granted, you a lot of people stopped doing that with the last nerfs, but yeah, the points on fire discipline need to be like 10 points now. Like right now it's 50 points, it needs to go to like 10 points, because this enhancement is now just bad. This is now just a bad enhancement, and you shouldn't take it if it's too expensive. But all the other rules also got a bit buffed, so I think overall Space Marines, in terms of rules, got buffed. But it doesn't feel good. I think now the problem is Space Marines die too fast. I think they just die too fast because there's no defense left. And yeah, everything else really depends on the points. So I'm excited to jump into the points. Thank you so much for watching. For courage and honor, we march for McCrag.